We have the invocation, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. I'm Larry Fannin. I'm one of the pastors out of the Springs of Bonita Church here in beautiful Bonita Spring. First of all, thank you all for serving our community the way you do. So let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our warm weather in this beautiful piece of paradise we call Bonita Springs. You have given us a great country founded on principles and truths from your word. Thank you that we are able to openly conduct the business of our city. Please give these leaders humility, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and good judgment in leading our city. And Lord, please keep us all healthy and bring more COVID vaccines. God bless America, Florida, and God bless Bonita Springs. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Jesse, would you lead us in a pledge of allegiance?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay, our city clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Rumba. Here. Councilman Purdon.
Here.
Councilwoman Carr. Mayor Steinmeier.
Yes. Here.
Councilman Corey.
Here.
Councilman Gibson.
Present.
Councilman Forbes.
Present.
Okay, well, welcome, folks. I'm Rick Steinmeier, your currently elected mayor. I'd like to thank all of you for attending these meetings. And I'd also like to thank all the people out here in TV land that are watching us. You're certainly are part of our community. And we love you all, and we wish you all the best of luck and health. We have public comment on agenda items. Anybody like to come forward and speak to what's on the agenda item? Seeing none, do we have a motion to accept the agenda
Second.
items? I make that motion. It's been seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carumba. Aye. Councilman Purdon.
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier.
Aye.
Councilman Corey.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Well, very good. Okay. So I suppose we're up to wall drop engineer.
Oh, wait, sorry, Mayor, you do have the consent agenda before you today?
We just did it.
Okay,
Oh, we voted for it. Yes. We voted to approve it all.
thank you.
We're all right? Okay, can we have Waldrop come, introduction by Nicole? Thank you, Nicole.
Good morning. Nicole Perino, Parks and Recreation Director for the record. Before you, we have Waldrop Engineering here to give a recap because we are now finished with phase 1 of the baseball complex renovations. So they're going to give you a recap, show you some befores and afters, as well as go over accomplishments that we did get completed, as well as some of the constraints that have popped up due to fixing some of the stormwater and ADA improvements. So I will turn it over to Will Hellman from Waldrop Engineering.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we're standing very close to the baseball complex, and if you haven't had a chance to walk out there yet, I'd recommend it after this meeting. It has really turned out excellent and is an excellent start to the five phases of the Recreation Center master plan. So, let's see. How do I pull up the slide? All right, let's start by recapping what the master plan is. There is a total of 5 phases that we envisioned with Nicole, as well as participation from the Little League, to envision how to make improvements to this park and just bring it up to the next level of performance for the city as a public recreation asset. So phase 1 specifically addressed stormwater management, ADA, as well as aesthetic improvements to kind of set the tone for the future appearance of the park. So if you'll see in here highlighted in the yellow, phase 1 encompassed the baseball quad, as well as the pedestrian connection from the parking lot, and relocated several of the backstops. So the goals of phase 1 primarily were stormwater management and ADA accessibility and site connectivity. So prior to the phase 1 improvements, there was consistent flooding issues with the older original design of the drainage system, which was not much. So these improvements captured all hardscape runoff with a pre-slope trench drain system, and then used a built-in filter system to capture sediment and other debris that might run off from the hardscape areas, and expanded the dry detention area and restabilized with sod to offer a place for the water to filter in. So as an improvement with the stormwater management came the ADA accessibility. The existing asphalt and concrete slabs were just not ADA compatible and provided difficulty for the Little League users as well as other members of the community and spectators to safely navigate this site during baseball events. So removing the non-compliant concrete and asphalt and reinstalling concrete and concrete pavers provided an ADA solution as well as an aesthetic improvement. For the ball fields, we also initiated, which will be mostly in phase 2, some of the improvements needed to bring them up to Little League standards. Phase 1 incorporated relocating the backstops on fields 1, 2, and 4, which was necessary to accommodate the ADA and stormwater improvements. As part of that backstop relocation, we also installed new temporary safety netting, as well as foul ball marker poles and a concrete curb that separates the playing field from the pedestrian spaces and is also part of the stormwater management system. For aesthetic improvements, that mostly has to do with the selection of the paver colors and patterns as well as the landscape material. You'll see a handful of new Royal palms and Bismarck palms that really just add that extra touch and is only a start. Ultimately, many more palms will go in to really give this ballpark, make this ballpark stand out. So let's look at the pictures. Phase 1 before and after. This is standing where the sidewalks met at the south end between ball fields 1 and 2. Looking north, before you could see just a narrow 5-foot sidewalk with the sides sloping pretty substantially. That was widened to a 10-foot path, paver path, locked in with concrete ribbon curb. And we also created these paver nodes as gathering spaces that will ultimately tie into the overall pedestrian circulation improvements. In the baseball quad, you can see the before and after. One of the more significant things in relocating the backstops and making these ADA and stormwater improvements is widening the quad. So you can see in the before picture, it was a little cramped with the bullpens and the bleachers and shade structures, and relatively difficult to navigate, especially when there's a crowd. That's been widened out, and through the use of pavers, has visually established walking corridors versus where the ball players and spectators will be. You'll also see in this after picture along the sides, there is a temporary sunscreen installed coming up from the base of the concrete work up to the fence. And it's a temporary solution to a condition that was created with the improvements to the hardscape, but utilizing the same fence for now. And I'll circle back around to that in the phase 2 discussion. Specifically at the concession building was where the worst of the ADA compliancy issues were. It was just very difficult to navigate, even if you are able to walk on 2 legs easily. So pulling these backstops away from the concession building gave us the room that we needed to decrease our slopes to a maximum of 2% and allow for wider pedestrian corridors, improving circulation. So that is what phase 1 accomplished, and as a result of this being a renovation project, we came across a few constraints and limitations, both in sticking to the goal to allow Little League to continue on with their season, which I believe kicks off next week, and also budgetary constraints. We really had to strategize for phase 1 where to make the best improvements. So coming out of phase 1 and looking to phase 2, we've got several key areas that we need to focus on for the next round of improvements that takes it to the next level. And this step really puts a lot of attention on Little League and the usability of the fields themselves, as well as the experience for the spectator. So this image here is from the 3D rendered video that I believe you all have seen, and captures the final vision of what this ballpark will look like upon completion of the future phases. So the key part of phase 2 is bringing the fences, backstops, and actual playing fields up to Little League standards. And those standards are specifically dealing with safety as well as playability. As part of the phase 2, you'll see lacking in the after photos are the bleachers and covered dugouts and shade structures that were not compatible with the ADA and stormwater improvements that we made. So for this Little League season, they currently do not have permanent structures to designate their bullpens and spectator areas. Phase 2 looks to add these in as a permanent solution that build off of the aesthetics that were established in phase 1, as well as meets or exceeds the Little League safety standards. So following up on that, this is a better image of what, if you're standing looking north between fields 1 and 2, what the final vision is for the baseball quad, with the covered bleachers, benches, trash receptacles, and just a very pleasant area to be in for the players as well as the spectators. And of course, not visible in this are the temporary windscreens at the fences. Phase 2 looks to replace all of the fencing and the backstops for, of course, to bring it up to Little League standards, but also create a safer transition between the playing field and the quad. And go to the comments on this page. The last major improvement needed for phase 2 is relaying out the playing fields on fields 1, 2, and 4. 3 was completed last year, I believe, and is in excellent shape and conforms to the Little League. But the other 3 fields, as a result of relocating the backstops and fences, are no longer compatible with what the Little League considers the standards for playing. So I will open it up for questions, or if Nicole would like to add anything. But we've We really enjoyed working on phase one, and I think one of my favorite parts was coming out for the site visits and neighbors walking over and just saying how thrilled they were to see the city making these improvements and couldn't wait for Little League to come back and start playing.
Okay, thank you. Fred, would you like to comment, please?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say, I think you
Bring your microphone down, Fred, please.
I want to say that I think you did a great job with what you've done. When will we start on another phase?
So, Mayor and Council, today we'd be looking for some direction from you as to whether you'd like us to bring a budget transfer to the next meeting.
I for one would. I would like to keep it going. I don't want to spend more money than we could at a time, but I think we ought to keep the momentum going to bring it up to what we want to ultimately have.
Of course, yeah, and the goal, especially working with Little League too, is to not disrupt their playing seasons and really stick to strict deadlines with the construction plans and then the construction, and get in and do the work whenever Little League is out of season and have it fresh and ready to go as soon as they're ready to start back up.
Right.
Okay, Mike?
No, I agree with Fred. Looks great, and I think we should just continue on, as the schedule permits.
Chris?
I would support moving ahead with phase two at the appropriate time based on the Little League season, and congratulations on a job well done.
Thank you.
Amy, please?
I concur. I'm in favor of moving forward with phase two. I think what you've done so far is really lovely, and at some point I'd like to know what phase 3, 4, and 5 are, just to sort of finish the picture. But thank you for the efforts that have been made to date.
Of course, thank you.
Hey, Jesse?
When I took the tour with Nicole, I was amazed at how much you guys have actually gotten done so far. So I'm impressed with the work. I know she's been on top of you guys, and I appreciate that. And, I just think the quality of work has been good, and I'm really looking forward to completion. But definitely I'm in for the next phase, 100%. So thank you.
Laura, do you have a comment? Question?
I thank you. It was a great presentation. Nicole, thank you for overseeing this. And I too believe that we should move forward. And I'm looking forward to the second phase. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, I'm impressed with the quality of your work. As soon as we give direction to the staff, how soon do you think you can start? You don't want to interrupt the season in the summer? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I believe Little League would continue their season into the summer while we're preparing the construction plans and permitting with the city, and we would be ready to go basically with the same construction timeline that we completed phase one in, starting in early fall, working through fall during the dry season, and then being completed at the beginning of the year for Little League to start their spring season.
Okay, any other questions?
Mayor and Council, I think we received.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the transfer.
Second.
We'll bring back the actual budget transfer to the next meeting. We were looking for
Okay.
direction today, and then we'll also bring forward the approval for the change order to include the professional planning services to occur. So we'll have that as consent agenda items for your next meeting.
Okay, staff has all the direction they need at the moment.
Correct, thank you.
Thank you. Very good, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Cool. Okay. Mayor and City Council member items. I brought up the Good Bread Grocery Rehabilitation Project. I'd like to get comments from the council that were here for the last 6 years. Starting with Fred, what do you think about it? We've spent a long time on this project, and it's an eyesore at the moment. I think it needs some immediate paint job or something. So what do you think, Fred? And we'll just go around for comments.
No, I think we should move forward because it is kind of an eyesore. I think that we need to move forward, and I think we need to try and make it historically correct too.
Thank you. Mike, you're right next door to this mess.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see it cleaned up in the interim, but also long-term, I noted in here, it mentioned about putting in restrooms and stuff, and I just don't think that's a great idea for that old building. My ideas for the place would be to use it as like a shadow box or a diorama, so that way nobody actually goes inside. It would be closed in. You'd have the windows, like the front section could be set up like the original store. Then on the back you could have it divided up inside. You could have windows in the back so you could see in, and like one room might be like the hotel room that's currently inside the Lyles building, could be showcased there. The other one could be some other historical display in there. Either that, or another idea would be to divide it up possibly into 2, maybe 3 units. I'm not sure how big the artist cottages are compared to that, but we might be able to get a couple extra artist units out of it. And then it would only really need electric, and I think they have like a hand washing sink in them, but it wouldn't need a whole lot of utilities running into the place. I think that way we can kind of keep the budget lighter and get things done, and have it something that's usable, looks nice. But those are my ideas for the thing long term.
Amy, since you've been here,
Well, it's been a concern of mine since we moved it there, and I do not like its present condition for sure. I kind of agree. I hate to say this, but I think we have to think about whether that's an appropriate place for it, or if we really want to put any more money into it, because I think we had some contribution from the Historic Preservation Board to hire, would you help me, Arlene? There was some money that was sent over from the Historic Preservation Board that we were supposed to use it for planning or something?
So you do have a capital improvement line item for this project, and we've been pursuing grant applications through the Division of Historical Resources. Unfortunately, one of the pitfalls of that is since we relocated the building, it makes it more challenging to receive historic preservation funds for that. There was, I know that the Historic Preservation Board looked at it previously, and I'd ask Ellie if there was any actual funds from their grant line item.
They provided some money, but what I don't recall is what it was supposed to be used for, so that was my question. Did anybody look at it and give us suggestions? I don't believe that we can, I think at one time when we had a discussion, it wasn't feasible to put restrooms in there, so it can't really be a working place in the normal sense.
So you do have a foundation there, and then you have a stub out for water and sewer.
Mm-hmm.
But similar, if you were looking to be similar to the artist cottages, they have, like as Councilman has mentioned, they have a utility sink and electricity. That's what we provide, a utility sink. The bathrooms that they utilize are in the Lyles Hotel. They have access to the bathrooms there. But I'll let Ellie talk on whether the direction the Historic Preservation Board has taken with it.
Good morning, Ellie McEwen for the record. If you'll recall, 2, maybe 3 years ago, where it was on Dean Street at Old 41, that was under development. The developer provided $140,000 to relocate the building. The Historic Preservation Board has been in support of the relocation. They've not allocated funds directly. As Arlene talked about previously, the past 2 years, Council has allocated $100,000 each year. So currently, we have about $240,000 to do design plans and begin construction.
Well, could you just check the record, because somebody gave like $10,000 or $20,000 for us to, it was supposed to be used for that. I don't recall how the wording was for it. I'm talking about something different. I understand what you just discussed, but irrespective of that, because we're having this discussion now, I think we need a serious input about what is possible there and what functionally it's supposed to operate as. Whether we could just use the facade and use it for wayfinding or historic points of interest, that was brought up in the past. You know, I think we really need to be together on the direction in which we have to go, and then go forward with it, because I don't want to look at it for another 2 years.
Okay, Laura, do you have some comment? I'm
Okay.
going with the people who've been here.
Oh, thank you, sir. I do. Thank you, Ellie.
Sure.
And I do have a report on the Historic Preservation Board, if you want me to do it now or later. But the Historic Preservation Board received funds to do research as to the feasibility of a historic village. And they dutifully did their study, and it didn't come up as if it would be fiscally possible right now. We need a private partner, and so the Historic Preservation Board, Chair Jay Welsh, who's doing a great job, is a realist and says, okay, we need to first line up our ducks, but there's a possibility, and there is, of cutting and pasting the different scenarios. So with regard to like moving it, I don't know, but back to the, you call it the good, I call it the Dixie Moon Cafe, I'm sorry. You call it the good
Good
bread
bed,
phrase.
good bread grocery.
Yeah. It is dilapidated. I saw you walking around there, and you noted the conditions were horrible. But I'm just wondering if, before we spend really a lot of money, could we have a paint party? And paint it. Painting is one of the least expensive ways of upgrading, and at least immediately do something and then work on moving forward with something more significant to improve it. But as Mike pointed out and Amy pointed out, the analysis of moving it and being a functional building was not happening. So that there would not be toilets put in there. It was not. If anything, an interactive center, but Mike's idea of just windows looking in, and we don't even have to put a sink. We could do those hand dispensaries all over. So even outside, people could do hand dispensaries and move, and let's see what happens in the next few years downtown, is how I would approach the situation.
Okay, Chris?
Well, I think in the short term, we need to paint it, fix it up, keep it from becoming further deteriorated. And I think as we progress with downtown renovation and development, that we can look at where it might be better suited. I agree with Amy. I'm not sure that that's the best location for it. But I think our first priority ought to be to stop the deterioration, do the painting, fix the structure, however, so that it doesn't continue to deteriorate. So let's do that, and then we can figure out if it's in the right location.
Okay, and Jesse?
Yeah, I don't know the validity of it or not, but I had somebody from the Historic Preservation Board just tell me that they had allocated funds from last year and they have left over from this year. So if that's financially something that moves you and it's accurate, then that's potentially good. I mean, we need to give it a facelift minimum. I'm not tied to the location one way or the other, to be honest.
Okay, well, I get the comment, and I brought this up. I really think a quick whitewash of the building it's deteriorating the whole park area. But temporarily, if staff could come up with a paint job, and then we can further discuss the future of this. Now, it cost somebody $100 and some thousand to move it.
Plus.
We extorted that, in my opinion, from the developer. And where there's money available to do some work on it, but immediately I'd like to see it cleaned up. It's a detriment to the city right now.
Mayor and Council, we do have funds in the current capital improvement budget, and we can utilize that to power wash and paint and do some minor repair work currently now. We can put a proposal together for you for that in the interim. And then during our discussion during budget, when we go over all of our capital improvements projects, we'll look for direction from you on how you'd like us to plan in the future for it. In the interim, we can also distribute, there was some plans done by Sam Vincent for the property. We can send that back out to council prior to budget time so you can review those as well. And then we can have a further discussion during the budget. But Councilmember Crumbaugh will look in the budget transfers and see if there was an additional amount given to us from the Historic Preservation Board. And then Councilmember Purdon, there's two funding sources for Historic Preservation. One's for their committee and then one's for their grant program. And there has been times in the past where the grant program has made donations to different projects. At one point, they were looking at giving some funds towards the old restaurant at the Wonder Gardens. And so there's different city projects that they've donated their grant funds to when there's been some left over towards the end. So that could be what Councilmember Carumba's thinking of.
I'm more concerned, I'm fairly certain that when
Yes,
they
Amy.
transferred, when they transferred the funds, they had it for a purpose. And I can't remember the specific purpose. I thought it was for design or planning, something to do with planning. It wasn't just use it for the Good Bread grocery. It was to figure out what to do with it. That was my recollection, but I don't have the exact wording. That's what, we should just ask them. Somebody should call the Historic Preservation.
Well,
because they might have some ideas, or maybe they, I'd like to fulfill what they transferred the funds for. I don't believe it was just a donation.
and
Well,
perhaps
could you find that information and bring it back to us later? Thank you.
Perhaps
Anybody
I
else
could-
like to speak on this item?
I would.
Yes, Laura.
Thank you. Part of the funds that the Historic Preservation Board did was they rolled over their money to the arts in public places, and they would actually like to work with arts and public places on, regenerating and refurbishing our Wonder Garden signs. So that was on the table that they talked about.
Okay, as far as
Perhaps I could shed a little more light on the allocation from the Historic Preservation Board. And I do apologize, I misspoke a little earlier. In last year's budget cycle, there was leftover rehabilitation money that the Historic Preservation Board had. And they did vote to move that money into the Good Bread Grocery rehab. So, Councilwoman Carumba, I believe that's maybe what you were talking about.
All right, anybody else?
Yes.
Yes, Jesse.
Question was there any specifications on the money? Was it for paint, waterproofing, like anything specific, or is it just a dollar amount moved over?
Yeah, I don't believe there was a specific allocation of where it should go. It was just go into...
Good Breads.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we immediately go on.
Councilman Forbes tried to get attention to.
Yeah, I was going to say, initially when it got moved, the Historic Preservation Board also had some money left over from the historic village, and that was stated that they were giving that to this project. Secondly, one of the things you could do to make it look a whole lot better is just temporarily put some trees and landscaping on the lot. Because it's very stark. All you have is a building and the grass, and that's fairly inexpensive, and you could move it.
Unfortunately, there wasn't any money left over for the historic village allocation. It was the rehab money that was reallocated. And when we did move the building a couple of years back, because the developer was anxious to start his project, the site where it is now was seen as a temporary site.
If it was, we spent a lot of money for nothing.
You didn't need to pour the slab and all that stuff. So it wasn't seen as a temporary. I don't agree with the site, but that was what was available.
Yes, Arlene?
I think we have enough direction from the council. What we will bring back is a proposal for some
You're gonna
interim
bring this back
maintenance.
to the next meeting?
Correct,
with,
we'll bring
with
back to the
some
next,
ideas
and
that
we'll also,
staff can do?
yes, and we'll also recirculate the original plans you had as well. But we'll bring back some proposals for interim maintenance with a cost estimate, and that will be part of that you do have funding in the CIP currently, so you would not need a budget transfer for that.
All right, thank you, Arlene. City Attorney's items, Mr.
Yes,
Derek.
Mr. Mayor. All right. The next item I have is, if you recall at your January 6th meeting, you confirmed your appointments to all the liaison boards, as has occurred on other boards where there's been more than one council member's interest. Councilman Perdon and Councilwoman Carumba were appointed to the South Lee EDC. We have received word back from the EDC that they would prefer that we have only one member. I am bringing this forward basically to alleviate the pressure from the two members to have that conversation. I listened to the tape of the meeting where it came up. There was a preference given for one of the council members. I have had conversations with the EDC executive director, as this is an unheard of situation where we have received feedback from one of the committees or outreach partners we have requesting a specific board or objecting to the council's appointments. So I'm bringing this item back to the council for further direction on how you'd like to handle this.
Since Amy and Jesse are involved with this, I'd like comments from Fred around the table as to what you think about the situation. Fred?
Well, I would think, first of all, aren't we still paying some contribution to this?
Yes, ma'am.
You annually make a contribution of $25,000.
Yeah.
And we have made that payment for this fiscal year.
We haven't what?
We have made the payment for this fiscal year.
I have some difficulty with them telling us what we should do, but I can understand, but I don't see why we'd have a problem, but that's just my feeling.
Mike, please.
Well, I mean, obviously, I guess we can only have one. And, you know, I would say if they prefer one person, I think we should give them who they want to work with.
Chris, you have a comment?
I'm like Fred, it's a little disturbing that they're telling us who they want us to appoint. It's our business, so I think we should do as we had previously agreed to, have two members to the council and just tell them that we're going to move forward the way it is.
Laura, you have a comment?
I do, sir. I guess I agree with Chris that I don't really like a committee telling us how many and who we may appoint. I understand why they would go with Jesse. But it would be nice to have an alternate. You both don't have to show up. And two people can go to meetings. You, Rick, and I were at the Historic Preservation meeting. We just have to note that there might be two members there. Amy and Jesse bring different skills to the table. And Amy is, oh, don't take this wrong, Jesse, level-headed, process-oriented, and Jesse, you're like, let's get going, man. What are we gonna do? So the two together might be pretty cool. I don't know, but.
Well, I'm going to give my opinion at this point. I don't know why we're giving them $25,000 of taxpayers' hard-earned money to start with. And who are they to tell us what our council people can say or do That's number two. And number three, how can two council people or one council person represent the city of Bonita Springs? That doesn't make sense to me either, since we have 7 people that make decisions for the city of Bonita Springs. I prefer that at the next budget meeting that we do not extend a $25,000 gift to this Chamber of Commerce arm. They have 1,400 members or something, and they have great big banquets where they spend money on themselves. I don't see any reason we need to give them money if they're going to dictate to us how we can react. But that's my opinion.
Ladies first.
Mayor, Attorney, how do we proceed with this?
Well, I would go ahead and let the 2 council members who are on the EDC currently present their case, but I mean, ultimately, it is the council's decision how this proceeds. You know, the role of the liaison in most outside committees is simply that to relay information back and forth between the council as far as adopted council policies to those groups, and to relay information from those groups to the council when they are seeking information. We have other liaison positions where the liaison is actually a member of the board, and I'm thinking Councilman Forbes and Councilman Carr both serve on the MPO, where they actually are part of the organization. They have voting rights. In those situations, they're actually representing not just the city, but they're representing their own views amongst those boards. So, you know, it's an unusual scenario where we would get I've never seen a situation where we've had a preference position, and I certainly do not want to put either Councilman Perdon or Councilwoman Caramba in an uncomfortable situation, but I think maybe we do need to hear from them before wrapping up the item.
I want to make one quote. Most dangerous words is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Amy, please tell me what you think of the situation.
Well, you know what I'm going to say, because as Councilman Carr has said, I'm a process person, and I find the suggested process improper and very disconcerting at best. And I think what should be clear is that supposedly this position is a position on the board of directors for the Lee EDO. But with conversations with Derek, we are, the council has been, or the liaisons have been instructed that we're not supposed to vote on anything because of the sensitive nature of the work that we do with community development. So it is not a voting position. It's not like it shouldn't operate like the MPO. It should operate more like an informational liaison. That was my understanding. So frankly, it doesn't matter who's there because we're supposed to be a transmitter of information. And we do have staff people that attend the meeting, and they are supposed to give the city review of what's going on in regard to development. So I don't see what the problem is. I think it's very unfortunate that they have taken what I think is a hardened position when we have had discussions with them. I don't have an easy solution. Maybe we could alternate if we want to just sort of get our way and sort of give them, if they only want one person at the meeting, we can, you know, alternate the months or something. I don't think it's a good, and it's not because I want any work here, because I have plenty of things to do. And one of the original reasons that I got on, or I volunteered to be the liaison, was because I do sit on the Lee County Economic Development, the Horizon Council, and I thought it would make a good match with showing the regional one. And as it's clear, Southwest Florida Inc., they're changing their structure. And the second reason is, since I've been on in 2016 on the council, there have been questions that have been raised, just like you have, Mayor Steinmeier, about the appropriateness of the contributions to that committee. And I wanted to have some hands-on experience with it to, when we were supposed to talk about this at our budget, I wanted to have full knowledge about what they were doing and the direction they were going in. Those are the two reasons why I wanted to be on the liaison, as a liaison. And I am frankly just surprised that this brouhaha has come up, because it doesn't seem like a big deal in many ways to me, and I don't think it's a good procedural precedent to follow.
May I?
You're not,
No, you're not going to recognize me?
no, Jesse's the next one.
Okay.
You pay
Well-
attention, please.
I think that, I mean, this is an awkward position to be in, first of all. And, you know, I really didn't want it to even come to the point where it came to this board and we tried to figure out ways to make it so it didn't become this way, specifically because I didn't want us to start looking at this $25,000 allocation as a giveaway, because it's not. But I didn't even want to have that discussion, and now we are, because we got forced to be here. You know, I didn't want to make the case for myself, because quite frankly, I don't like to do that. They wanted me. I'd love to be with them. I spoke in favor of this in the very beginning when we first started the allocation as a private citizen, then twice as a candidate. I met with that board and I discussed EDC, and at the time, the current EDC chair hadn't been to any of their meetings, and we had a liaison position open that entire time where anybody on council who wanted to be there could have gone in his stead, and they didn't. So this is a baby that I've enjoyed from the beginning, and quite frankly, as far as what is the committee? The committee is an economic development committee. And I don't want to get into records on economic development, but let's just say that board is made up of people who are in the economic development side of life. You know, if you won't take meetings with developers as policy, why are you the one that they want at the table to discuss economic development? Economic development and development commercially go hand in hand. So I see some confused looks, but I think that there really needs to be, you know, respect for, if you read the letter that they wrote, I think they put some pretty good reasons in there. And I don't like that it has to be one of us. I was fine with both of us. However, as far as economic development goes, that's what this seat is for. I would think that I would probably be the best choice for that, because the economic side of life is something that I'm very tied into from businesses throughout Southwest Florida, and I've been tied into that board and all the members on that board, and that board has asked the city. I think we're kind of painting this wrong when we're saying that they're trying to force us to do something. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get consistent with their bylaws. Their bylaws say they can only have one. So they're saying, hey, I don't want Amy and I only want Jesse. What they're saying is, hey, we're really pleased to have both of you, like they said in their letter. If you looked at their letter, we're really pleased to have both of you, but to be consistent with our bylaws, there can only be one. And being that, we would like it to be Councilman Purton, and it's reciprocated on my end. So, you know, that's really all I have to say about it. Thanks.
Okay, Laura, would you like to say something?
I would, sir. Amy, though, is a professor of economics in her past life. Me, sociology, so I wouldn't put myself, you know, in a business perspective, knowing what's going on in numbers, but Amy does, and Jesse has a feel for the community. But I think what is more relevant is Amy's point that during the workshop, we had scheduled talking about our committees. What are the purposes for these committees? Why do they exist? Have they changed? Have they evolved? Are some becoming lobbyist groups? Are some becoming, you know, kind of competitive? And to Mayor Steinmeier's, why are we giving them $25,000? So I think that perhaps there should be a summary of all the committees and what we give them and what they expect, and how we've, like, I was at a meeting where I was told, it was the Estuary Bay Management, that I was part of the quorum. I didn't know if I was or not. So I was like, no. And then they asked me to vote on a letter, and I'm like, no, I can't do that. I cannot commit the city of Bonita to a letter. So I think that a nice summary of exactly what liaisons do, we listen. Right? Isn't that part of the root word? And then we bring back, and we're the connection to council on what these committees, what their ask is, what their give is, and what do they contribute, and where are they going with their message. And it changes over time. And so I have like significant questions about, you know, where's the funding? Who appoints the board members? How long are the board members? I mean, we could go on with the list, but I just would do that kind of, we were going to do it in a workshop, and we never got around to it. So I think Amy has valid points that we haven't really addressed committees in a proper way.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to just add,
Yes.
Councilman Purdon's right. I may have overstated the case, but the issue is their bylaws call for one representative. I have reviewed those bylaws. I had actually requested to change those bylaws to remove the voting component for our board members, because we did not want a situation where they may vote on something and that would create a conflict if that item was something that would come back to the council. So I did want to add on to his comments that clarification.
Yeah, I'd like to say that, thank you, Laura. I think you made a point that you're just supposed to bring back the information to the city council as to what they're talking about. It's not our business to run business. We're not in the business of business. We're a government. We got to be separated from free enterprise. I don't understand. Remember, we spent millions of dollars to grow green algae up in Fort Myers years ago, and we gave millions of dollars to these people to build a factory so they could employ people, and they ran off with the money. It's not. I don't think it's our job to be in free enterprise. Chamber of Commerce has 1,400 members that pay for their services, and I think they ought to be left alone. I don't think we should be involved. Go there and listen to them, fine, but telling them what to do or suggesting what they do or representing the city is not our place. So that's my opinion. Where do we go from here, Jeff?
Could I make a suggestion, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could perhaps I work with maybe one of the Ellie or Matt or something and just summarize everything in an unbiased way, like literally, here's what they do, here's this, and then present it to council?
We can give them a report. They'll give us a report of everything they do and where all the dollars go. That's not an issue.
Okay,
we don't have to put it together.
But then the issue then becomes, why do we need to go to them? Why don't they send it to all of us?
I mean, these are all great issues that we can discuss with them, but I
Which
don't
we were
think,
going to at the workshop.
Right, and I think we will, and I think they'd be excited to, but that, where we're at right now, that's not where we're at.
Okay.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Order this up.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the committees in general, and we're talking about the South Lee EDC. For this item, we would need as I see it, there are two choices. Appoint one member to conform with their bylaws. Now, that could be a rotating position. That's up to you. I don't believe that it has to be an identified person. It's just a position. The other alternative is to request that they, in lieu of the city's contributions in the past, I think we do give more than other members, that we be entitled to 2 members on the board. And that way, the council's direction prevails. Those seem to me the 2 options that you can deal with at this time.
May I just ask why it's okay for Rick and I to attend the Historic Preservation Board meeting?
Well,
okay.
the Historic Preservation is one of our committees.
Oh, internal.
We control that.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, and remember that a lot of these committees, and I know there's a brief summary that you got with the committee structures when we were appointing liaisons, but a lot of them and we can certainly build that out and make it more clear, but some of them are a requirement by law that we have members on them. Other ones are larger organizations of other cities that are collegial, that we aren't required to be on, but they control their structures, and then a great number of them are our own. The South Lee EDC is one of those structures that is a separate corporation that has business within Bonita Springs, and so that's more of a relationship that both sides come together on.
Excuse me, Amy, did you say that we had staff at these meetings?
Yes.
From the city staff?
Yes, Laura.
Why? Why do we have city staff there?
Mayor.
We have liaisons and city staff?
Well, like just the way we have in the art and public places, we always have staff.
Mayor, the history of having staff there is the staff provides an update on the city's economic activities or planning development projects, rezoning projects have come through. So they provide a technical report update as an advisory to the committee. And Laura Taylor is our staff liaison to the committee.
Well, Fred, do you want to make a motion? Somebody ought to make a motion here. I think we've got to do something here.
Well, I would either do the rotating, or I would say change the bylaws, or we're going to cut the contribution down to half. Because Derek has pointed out that we are probably by far the biggest contributor to their program. And I see all the sides here, but I think something ought to be able to be worked out where we could do what we wanted or what council voted to do. You know, but we don't seem to want to change that. So I think either the rotating or I think maybe that's the safest thing to do, because it sounds like we may not give them 25 next year anyway, from what I'm hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I would also hate to make this sound like an ultimatum back to them. Would it be okay for the council if I went back to Ms. Esposito and expressed the concerns of the council and offered those two options to see if one of those would be more acceptable?
My opinion would be to eliminate our liaison with the committee, that we don't need to go there to be scolded by them. My motion would be to eliminate liaison to the Economic Development Board.
Either of us were looking for that. I don't think either of us.
Is there a second?
I think it's better than where we're going.
Is there a second?
I hear no second. Okay.
I would make a motion that Derek go back to the Economic Development Board and gently remind them of the city's contributions and our desire to participate, but that we feel that we should have two representatives that can attend those meetings and see what their reaction is to trying to work a compromise between their bylaws and what we would like to do.
So, if I can just make a comment, if we are going to see if we can change that to where it's not a voting member, then what would be the reason not to have two people there?
Right.
I understand only one because we have a vote currently, but if we're scrapping the vote, I don't see why you can't have two people there. So.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second Chris's motion, but add, if they choose that we only have one, then we choose not to give them $25,000.
Well, that would be a budget amendment, so whatever the direction is,
Sorry, I thought that would be a
report it
conclusion.
back.
All right.
No,
Not legal? All right.
I agree with what Councilman just said, that I don't understand if this is a non-vote. I mean, I don't get it either. This is why I don't understand what this is all about, really. I'm confused. If it's a non-voting position, what difference does it make?
Well, I think currently we have a vote, but we're trying to get rid of the vote.
No,
No, the vote's been removed.
the vote has been removed. So this is, it was my understanding that was the situation. Now, if I was misinformed, I'll correct opinion, but I'm in favor of doing some kind of an alternating process, because all we want to do is have one of us there to bring back our sense of what's happening and the direction in which that organization is going. I think it's important that the reason why I'm not in favor of not having any liaison is because that organization is changing, and I do think that we need to see how we fit in. And I'm very much in favor of the structural changes that they're going in. I think it's the right thing for that organization to be successful, and they do good work. I'm not against where they're going, because I think it's the right way to go to maintain their viability. But that will alter our relationship with that organization that has existed for, I don't know, 10 or more years. And it's important that we understand how we fit into it. So I'm in favor of something like alternating, only from the perspective is that I don't believe that they should dictate how we run our business here. And that's why I'm not pulling out.
So I'll ask our parliamentarian.
If there's no more comments, you can.
How do we?
You could vote on the motion, and
All right, would you repeat the motion, Derek?
the motion is for me to go back to the EDC and to propose one or two alternatives and see if their preference is. One, that we alternate the membership or the board member, or alternatively that if they amend their bylaws once again to add additional seat for us.
Yeah.
Okay, did I second that, or somebody seconded it?
I second it.
Okay, are we ready for a vote on that? It sounds good to me.
Councilman Burton,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr,
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier,
Aye.
Councilman Corey,
Aye.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba.
Aye.
Very good.
And Derek, can we just make sure we don't have any reference to the money? Bottom line, I mean, I would have rather not had the seat if I thought I was going to get them defunded. I mean, some of us might enjoy the fact that they're going to lose their funding, but that was not in any way, shape, or form my thought process.
I'm not going to
So,
condition it on that, but I would recommend that they watch the video.
Great, thanks.
Okay, city manager's items.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. First, I just want to apologize earlier. I misheard. I thought it was the approval of the agenda earlier, and it was the approval of the consent agenda, so I apologize. I did want to remind everyone that our clerk has contacted each of you that we are rescheduling our second meeting in March to March 24th at 9 a.m., and that is because it is spring break, and the gym will be utilized by the students during that time. We are continuing to monitor the vaccine distribution from Lee County. I did realize, and Councilmember Carumba reached out to me as well, that we have not seen a new telephone number for the reservation system. I did reach out yesterday, so I'll be updating you when I find out some more information from Lee County. I do know that they're looking at scheduling of the second vaccine as well. They're continuing that, and there was a delay due to shipping of tomorrow's vaccines are rescheduled for next week as well. I understand there's some additional COVID funding that is coming for rental assistance and utility assistance to Lee County. They began those discussions yesterday, so we're waiting for more information from the county as that as well. I think they'll be looking to some allocations to cities, and we'll need to determine the best administration for that as well. We'll be looking for direction from council on that in the future. I do believe there's a 10% administration fee, so we may be asking to work with Lee County on that, or we would need some outside additional assistance if we were going to work through that process to provide that at the city level. The other item I just wanted to discuss very briefly is that we will be coming up with an additional update on the City Hall. We have been notified by the contractor through our permitting that the low voltage wiring is not code compliant, so we'll be coming back with some more information on that, and I'll speak to all. I've had opportunity to talk to a couple of you, but I will speak to you all individually, is that I do not have an update on the cost of that, but We're hoping that is not at all a delay. We want to continue the project going, but I do need some cost estimate that once the wiring was touched, it then has to be to current code.
Manager, do we have a estimated time currently for moving back in? We started out at 22 weeks. I was wondering if they have given us an estimate? No.
Well, we once the job is complete, then staff needs to prepare the council chambers in order to have the meetings there. So that's what we're working on, is that next step, because there is some internal operations that staff needs to do in order for us to broadcast from City Hall.
Okay. Thank you, Arlene.
The only other item I wanted to address is Councilmember Carr had reached out to me about Lovers Key State Park and the address. In the past, staff had talked with Representative Rooney's office, and we were advised that the current zip code allowed the address to be Fort Myers Beach or City of Bonita Springs. However, the state park reflected it, but that actual zip code is a Fort Myers Beach zip code. So the city could be addressed as Bonita Springs or Fort Myers Beach. In talking now to our current representative, there is an actual process that the city could initiate. It does have to have strong reasoning to actually change the zip code. So the zip code could be applied for to the U.S. Postal Service to change it to a Bonita Springs zip code. I'm assuming, and this is just my assumption, that would be the 34134, because that would be consistent with the further south zip codes off the beach. But that is something that the council would have to pursue. I have spoken to the representative's office, and Councilman Purdon has been helpful. We can get a copy of the application. I do know that the Village of Estero recently went through a similar process, so we could bring that information forward, and I would have to find out, application fee and process as well.
I'm actually I spoke to my office this morning, and I'm going to have them put together for you nuts to bolts, everything you need to do procedurally, and who it goes to and all that. So she's going to put a nice ribbon on it and then send it over to you, and if you have any follow-up questions, you can let us know. We're working on a similar thing right now for Fort Myers. There's a portion of Fort Myers that's inappropriately being called Lehigh Acres. It's hurting their property rates and it's hurting their insurance rates due to it going off the crime index of Lehigh. We were able to help Estero with their zip code situation, but I mean, we have a very compelling argument in the sense that it's the second most visited state park in the entire country, or in the entire state, and it's right at the entry of our city. So I will have them get together logistically everything you need to do, and if I can actually get the application, we'll do that too. We'll get it to you guys, and then as it proceeds, we'll work on a letter of support. The deal is you only get to do this once every 10 years, is my understanding, so we just need to make sure it's super tight before it goes.
And I'm confirming with our clerk, but I'm not aware that the city of Bonita Springs has ever applied previously to change the address, at least not since 2005. So if that's the direction of council, staff will continue to bring that information back to you, and we'll know that there'll be some sort of voting or procedure on that, and we'll try to have some updates at the next meeting for that as well. And then additionally, in hearing your comments, not for the next meeting, but we will try within the month, is to work on taking that summary of the committees. Councilmember Carr has talked with me a little bit about that as well, and I think it would be helpful if we indicated on each committee as to whether it's an internal committee, whether or not it's a voting seat, whether or not it's required by state law or other law requirements that we have a committee member present, and which ones are just fully liaison informational purposes, and what the role is in each of those. So we can take the summary update that you have of all the committees and add some key features to that as well, and try to distribute that. That would make it more meaningful in a future discussion for you all to go through the committees to understand them all.
Okay, City Manager, while we're talking about Lover's Key, can we change the name of Estero Boulevard to Bonita Causeway, as it used to be called? Can we work on changing the name of that road?
That's a Lee County road, so we would need to work with
Yeah.
Lee County on that.
Lee County changed it, Lee County addressing. We'd have to talk.
Can we have staff look at that, maybe possibly make it Bonita Causeway is when they built it, it was called. back in '65, and I don't know how it got to be called Estero Boulevard, which looks like it belongs to the Fort Myers Beach city. So,
We can inquire to Lee County about that.
okay, thank you very much. That's it?
Just one thing more. Then when we look into each of the committees, could we also see if their mission statement has changed?
What we can do is those that are internal, we'll look whatever mission we have, and then if those are external boards, we'll ask them if they have an updated
But we'll know how
mission.
much money we're even giving and contributing to external boards.
Correct, that's in your budget. We can easily pull that. We can make that a part, each committee, the dollar amount perceived.
Thank you.
Okay, Amy, would you like to start with the mayor and council members' reports?
The only meeting that I attended was the Horizon Council, and it was very interesting because they're going full speed ahead with their industry appreciation event, which is going to be held in May, and it's going to be at the new Luminary Hotel, and they're expecting between 500 and 600 people, which I thought was kind of surprising. So I hope it all works out fine, but it was, they're lining up their speakers, and a few people have decided they didn't want to participate, so they're going to have to do some restructuring there. And I just want to mention that there are a couple of new task force or committees that the Horizon Council is working on. One is the Sports Council Committee, which I think works nicely with our plans to improve our baseball field, but this whole concept of how sports brings economic activity into different regions. Another one is that there is an Inclusion and Diversity Committee, which is just gearing up. And the last one, which is really interesting, is there's an Aerospace and Aviation Committee, and they gave a point of information which I thought was interesting because I didn't know about this, but Southwest Florida is the third most active aerospace economic center. And again, they highlighted that Bonita Springs High School has an aerospace academy, so we're right in the thick of things. So that was kind of interesting information. And that's it.
Thank you, Amy. Jesse, you have a report for us?
Yes, sir. Two real quick things for you. The first one is to deal with Senate Bill 406 from Senator Rodriguez that actually was able to get out of committee on Monday. The thing with that is that it is not the first initial iteration that we saw because Collier County put a letter to the Senate essentially saying there was things that they wanted changed. The changes weren't anything that I saw that were going to be crazy. It was things like so the basin ad valorem, I gotta take this off. The basin ad valorem would be levied in the counties.
Hey, Jesse, move your thing, or turn that off. That thing, it works with the...
Can you hear me now?
I'm worried about the echo. Okay, I guess we're all right.
Okay, so pretty much it's going to be a 5-person appointed by the governor. It's going to be Lee and Collier only. It would become active July 1st of 21. One of the big changes that I saw was that the basum ad valorem levied in the counties would be used for projects and flood control operations and maintenance only within the counties in which they were collected. So that's good. So you're saying all the money that Collier and Lee put in, if we switch, that's going to only be for projects over here, not something over here that eventually is going to help down here. All those would go in there. So that was one of the things Collier added, which I had no problem with. I was able to speak to Senator Rodriguez, Ray Rodriguez, Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez, and Senator Pasadomo all on this bill. Senator Pasadomo's issue was the same issues that Collier had, and we can probably get you a copy of the letter that Collier sent. The interesting thing this morning was I looked at the markup of the bill, and the markup of the bill essentially is everything that Collier wanted. However, Collier's lobbyist this morning said in tally that they still weren't happy. So the question is, what's left to be done, and is it going to be a change that's going to get Kathleen Pasadomo on board? Because all roads go through Senator Pasadoma. So if she's not on board, it's not happening. So the question is, are the things that Collier got changed going to be enough? And the short answer was this morning was no. So there's still something else they want. What that concession is, I don't know. So all that says to us is there's going to be another iteration of this still coming. So just something to keep an eye on, because obviously us, as a city, this is kind of a big deal for us. So I'm very on top of it, but as it proceeds, we'll hear more. Then also, there is an area of my district that for years before I was elected has driven me nuts, and it's over at Imperial and Bonita Beach Road. So if you're on Imperial and Bonita Beach Road, when you get off exit 116, you have the grave site on the corner, and you can see the gravestones, and you got that big, the big billboard. Okay, so back before I was elected, I was working with Carl Schwing on trying to get rid of that sign. And it's a complicated process because the county owns the sign land, and they wanted to swap out of something on 70. Anyways, it's a complicated process to get rid of the sign, but more immediately, one of the things that I'd like to do, and I'll follow up with you guys after I have more, I'm going to be meeting with New Hope Church tomorrow. New Hope Church is actually the owner of the gravesite. So I'm going to discuss with them anything that they may have planned or not planned in regards to beautifying that area. I don't know if it's a live wall or covering it up, but when you're rolling down Bonita Beach Road, you come to exit 116, you're only in our city for 35 seconds, and then you're looking at grave sites. Now, they're historic, and that's great, but at the same time, it's not exactly the most aesthetically pleasing thing to pull into. So I'm going to talk to the church and see if there's any potential remedies to make that corner look a little bit better. But, there's nothing firm, but as I move forward, I'll follow up with you all. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Laura?
Thank you. Once again, I want to reiterate, the chairman of the Historic Preservation Board is thrilled that you're going to be attending meetings and contributing, and that the historic village is not dead. It's just postponed, because if you look at the Gibbs report, I know it's dated, but if you take 15, make 15 20, and then make 20, let's be optimistic, 24, I think it's going to happen. Really going to happen. So downtown is going to pop, and they're going to be wrong on the numbers. There are going to be more people and a lot more younger people. And so the Historic Preservation Board is looking for a private member to help us, because it is expensive to move around buildings, and to find the place to put them. Lover's Key address is kind of key, and it's time sensitive because they are putting up a building, and it's a federal building, and once it's plaqued, you can't change it. So at least that's what I've been told. So I hope that we can get at least Bonita Springs on the plaque. So that's what I have, sir.
Thank you, Laura. Fred?
Oh, good.
Come in.
I've got 2 or 3 things. One is, can everybody hear me, or do I need to turn off this? Let me turn this off. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Number 1, at the MPO executive meeting last week, there was a comments made by Don Scott, the executive director, that they're going to get $3.25 million of money that they had not counted on, and that likely at least 2 projects in Bonita would get some of that money. One of them would be the old 41 and Bonita Beach intersection, and possibly could spill into the quadrant. The second would be Old 41 South. There's a project there where what he was talking about doing is adding money to contracts to accelerate design so you would have more or less close to shovel-ready drawings quicker than you would ordinarily. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring to the attention of the board. That happened at the executive committee. I don't know if it'll come up at the meeting this week on Friday or not. The other thing I want to point out, on COVID, and there's not much said about this, that's why I'm bringing it up here, because maybe the TV viewing audience will be interested in this. Everybody that has an underlying medical problem, there's no way to get on the surface a priority to get you vaccinated, whether you're 65 and older or whether you're younger than 65. And there is a process. The only legal process that's available at this point to do that is through the hospitals. The hospitals do have vaccine now for that purpose. Lee Memorial has been, they started back before Christmas vaccinating people. That you had to have an underlying condition. You didn't have to be 65 and older. Last I knew, and that was 3-4 weeks ago, they had vaccinated over 10,000 people, and that was as of 3 or 4 weeks ago. So anybody that you know that's asking you, how do I get moved ahead, or how can I get a vaccination if I got serious medical conditions and I happen to be under 65, that is the only legal answer. So I just want to make that point. The other thing I wanted to point out, I think you all got this, but there's what's called House Bill 403. And House Bill 403 basically deregulates home-based businesses. Not only doesn't it take the right of the cities and the counties away from regulating, but it also has no regulations. And that means any type of business, and you ought to all be concerned about it. Now, I live in an HOA. We have people that operate home-based businesses in the HOA, but they're the kind of businesses that would not create a nuisance to the neighborhood, lower property values, create a danger and all that. So you all got packages on this House bill, and that text came out at 12:30 on Monday, a holiday, but you all have it. I know, if those are in favor of it, write that committee a letter and say, I fully support it. I don't support it. I imagine some people here do, some people don't, but at least you've got the package, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Fred. Mike, do you have anything for us today?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Derek for putting together these new general and procedural rules. But I just had a question about
if you caught the typos.
Well, section 11 sanctions. It's it's got members who intentionally and repeatedly do not follow proper conduct may be subject to sanctions up to and including forfeiture of office. So I was just wondering what those sanctions were. Like maybe if we had like a hockey penalty box or something where we get 5 minutes for fighting, 2 minutes for unsportsmanlike conduct.
I would love to come up with some. I pulled this language from your charter and your existing rules, but mainly it would be ceremonial censures.
Yeah.
It would not be. There could be a point where it could require a vote to take some action against the member if they're really acting out of line, but it's not the kind of sanctions that would result in a forfeiture of office or something severe are not the kind of things that are called for by speaking out of turn or not getting recognized and those kind of items. So I wouldn't be too afraid if that's
all right.
what the question was.
That's all I had to say. Thanks.
Okay, Chris, please.
Just a note that Bonita Bay is conducting a sound study of the level of traffic noise along 41. We continue to have an increasing number of homes that the sound levels are getting worse as traffic increases, population increases down here, and we'll be sending the results of that traffic study or sound study over to the city for their information once it's completed. We're also commenting upon both the bill that Fred talked about with respect to businesses at home as well as the House and Senate bill that's regulating short-term rentals. There's a great concern that we would have neighborhoods and neighbors that would be impacted by that, and we'll be writing, asking for our representatives and senators to vote down those measures. So those are the only two things I had to report.
Thank you, Chris. A couple things. This is the beginning of the season. It's also Ash Wednesday, which for 40 days of Lent, which is like high season for down here in Southwest Florida. So please drive carefully. The poor sheriff has so many accidents to investigate. We need you to drive very cautiously. I also read that the MPO come out with the figures on Big Carlos Bridge, that it's going to be $48 million, and 25 million of that is going to be paid for by the local government, but reimbursed by somebody. I think this is where they decided that they were going to build this high bridge because of this $25 million that somebody's going to reimburse them for. So, but that still has to be paid for by Lee County residents, and so that the high bridge is a go. I also read that homeowners associations and condominiums are not affected by this rental proposal from the state. Since Bonita Springs has 70% of the people live in gated communities and condominiums, I think it's the rental program that they're proposing would just affect the other 30% of the people that don't live in gated communities. Also, I believe that the state wants their sales tax that they're not getting currently, because I know lots of people, I live in a condominium, and lots of people rent their apartments out for the season, and they just get a check and they don't register with the county, they don't register with the state, and they're not paying all their bills. They're not paying their TDC, they're not paying their sales tax. This is very common. I think it's appropriate for the state to try and get the sales tax, because we don't have a state income tax, so I think that's appropriate that they go for that. So that's about all I have for us. What else we got here? We got the approval of the minutes.
So move.
Second.
Call for a vote.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Steinmeier?
Aye.
Councilman Corey?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman Purdon?
Aye.
Okay, any other public comment, please? Thank you, Waldorf, for being here with your presentation. You do excellent work. I look forward to working with you in the future. Any other business before the city?
Motion to adjourn?
Approved. We're adjourned.
Good.